Hey, welcome to Taylor's Trick Taking Table. I'm Taylor, and it's good to have a nice normal video, nothing too crazy. What is that? Look up in the sky! It's a bird! It's a plane! That was kind of just like a non-joke. Is there any way to like go back in time and get a better joke? Oh, we can. Okay. Hey, welcome to the first time. I'm time traveling Taylor, and what is that in the sky? Huh? It's a bird! It's a plane!
It's Daylight Saver.
Oof, that was not funnier. But it was a good segue. After all, we are on a deadline. Just because I can travel through time doesn't mean I have an infinite amount of it. I've got deadlines and mouths to feed. I have to go forward in time and feed my kids yesterday's supper. So let's just jump to the game we're covering today. Tricky Time Crisis. It's by John Barron and art by Sai Beppu. Oh, love Sai Beppu. And the hook is, if you're familiar with the games, it's kind of like Potato Man meets David and Goliath. I hope that piques your interest. It's essentially a must not follow game, meaning if I lead this suit, no one else can play that suit into the trick. And then when you take cards, you're trying to take only one of each suit because it scores the rank. If you take more than that, you're just getting 2 points per card. Oh, such a wonderful idea. This is on Kickstarter. And if you check the link below, it'll lead you to the page. I have first impressions at the final part of the video. Check those out. But again, since this is a Kickstarter video, take everything I say with a grain of salt. John sent me this game, so keep in mind any opinion could be biased. Keep it in mind. So let's go to the table and I'll show you how to play. The deck in Tricky Time Crisis is a little bit wacky. So you're going to have suits equal to the number of players. You're always going to have the Dr. Tricky Time suit, which is a special suit, and it's going to go from 8 to 34 depending on the number of players. Sometimes you'll remove some low cards, some middle cards. It all varies. Then you're going to have superhero suits depending on the player count -1. So if you had 4 players, you would have 3 of the heroes, and the heroes come in 4 different flavors. You have Kid Cuckoo, Daylight Saver, Double Take and Double Time, and then Doc Talk. All 4 of them have the same deck makeup for themselves. So they have 1 of the highest and lowest, so a 9 and a 3. Then they have 2 each of the 2s. So there's 2 8s, 2 7s, 2 5s, 2 4s, and then there's 3 6s in their respective suits. And then finally, each of the 5 suits has a special card over here. So, for example, the Kid Cuckoo has a 0, which wipes the trick. I'll explain all these near the end. We're going to set up for a 4-player game, so we're going to use these 3 heroes, and then of course, Dr. Tricky Time. To set up the game, you're going to construct the deck depending on the player count. You're going to shuffle and deal 13 to each player, and you're going to remove the player count number of cards, so in this case, 4. The start player for the first trick is whoever last saved the world. Let's say it's probably Samus. They are going to lead any card they want to the trick. Looking at their hand, let's say they played the 6 Daylight Saver card. Tricky Time Crisis is a may not follow or can't follow game, meaning you can play whatever you want as long as it hasn't been played before in terms of suit. So when it comes to Sedusa up here, looking at her hand, she can play any card she wants except for any suit that's already been played. So the Daylight Saver card, for example. So maybe she just plays the 7 in the Double Take, Double Time suit. Now coming to Jessie, she can't play either of these 2 suits that have already been played. So she can now either play the orange Kid Cuckoo suit, or she can embrace her true villain and play one of the Dr. Tricky Time cards. Maybe she'll play one of those. So now Dexter has to play the last suit that isn't present, the Kid Cuckoo, so that he can play any of his Kid Cuckoos, including the special one, which I'll explain what it does later. And so he's going to just play the 6 here. So now players are going to evaluate which side won the trick, either the villain, Dr. Tricky Time, or the good characters, the heroes, fighting against the villain. How they do that is they add up their hero strength and compare it to the one Tricky Time villain strength. If that sum is either equal or above to the value on the Dr. Tricky Time card, they have defeated it and the heroes have won. So in this case, the players are sadly below because they are at 19 compared to 27 on Dr. Tricky Time. So the player who played the Dr. Tricky Time card, the villain, Jessie, is going to win the trick. If this number was 19 or below, let's say maybe Jessie would have played the 17 here, The other team, the good players, would have won the trick. But for now, let's evaluate it how it was, where Jesse had won the trick. So different things happen depending on if the villain wins the trick or if the heroes win the trick. Let's go through the villain first. So starting with the villain player who played the card, they get to choose whether they want to pass on taking cards or take 1 or 2 cards from the trick into their score area. I'll explain how scoring works in a little bit, but let's just say Jessie wants to take 2 cards. She's going to take the 27 and this 6 into her score pile. When the villain wins, after the villain takes either 0, 1, or 2 cards, it then goes clockwise. And one of the benefits of winning the trick is that you have the option to pass on taking cards. However, if you're part of the team that doesn't win the trick, you have to take a card. So after Jessie, it's going to go clockwise, and all the good players who can must take a card. So it's going to come to Dexter here, and so he must take either this 7 or this 6, green. Let's say he takes the 7, and then it is going to come to Samus, and Samus has to take this 6 into her scoring pile. If there isn't a card here, because maybe the villain player took 2, then the last hero won't have to take a card. If Jessie had only taken the purple and left this yellow, then Dexter would have had a choice of 3, Samus would have had a choice of 2, and the last one would have gone to Sedusa. Then Jessie would lead to the next trick because she was the winner of the trick. Let's rewind. It's all about rewinding in this game. And let's see what would have happened if Jessie actually would have played that 17. So in this case, the hero's total was equal to or above the villain. So the heroes win. And whoever is the hero that played the highest card, they're going to be considered winning the trick. So Dexter down here, they played the 7, which was higher than these 6s. They're going to win to the trick. If Dexter had played a lower green, maybe like a 5, and there was a tie, it's whoever played later into the trick between the 2 tied cards. That would be considered the winner of the trick. So starting with that hero winner, so Dexter has the choice of whether to draft one of the cards or pass. Again, if you are in the winning team of the trick, you always have the choice to pass. So let's say Dexter takes the 7, and then it goes clockwise from the winner, and the Samus now can choose whether they want one of these. Maybe they take the tricky time one. It comes to Sedusa, and now she can choose between these. She's going to pass. So the loser of the trick, the villain, Jessie over here, must take a card. Again, one of the penalties of being a part of the losing team is you cannot pass. So maybe Jessie just picks that one there. And then this would just get discarded. And just to clarify, the villain who lost when the heroes win always picks last. So say maybe Sedusa had played the strongest card to the trick, and maybe she was picking first and pick that. It would actually skip Jessie, it would go to Dexter, then Samus, and they would maybe pick, and then Jessie would be forced with the last one there. So play like this continues until either all the cards were played, or until when it comes to someone to play a card and they can't. So for example, maybe if this was one of the tricks near the end, if we're fast forwarding here, again, it's all about time, and this was played into the trick, and then say Jessie only has these cards in her hand at the end, and she can't validly play this yellow or this orange. She would just reveal her hand and say, ooh, it's over. No one takes any cards in the trick, it just ends, and you go to scoring right then. We've again manipulated time and jumped forward to the end where we do kind of a rough, small sample size for scoring. So how scoring works is, if you take 2 or more of a suit, then you get 2 points per card. If you take only 1 of a suit, then you get actually the printed rank value. So over here, Samus has 2 yellow, so that's just 2, 2, that's 4 points for yellow, but she took only 1 of the Kid Cuckoo suit, so she gets 7 points for that. So it's 11 points there. Dexter only took 1 purple, so Dexter gets 26 points for here. Jessie sadly took 2 purple, so that's only 4 points. And then over here, she took 3 yellow, so that's 6 points, so she made 10. And then Sedusa did pretty well, so she got exactly 1 of each, so that's actually 13 points over there for her. After you would score, you just shuffle up and redeal. You play rounds equal to the number of players, and whoever has the most points wins. One other thing for scoring at 3 players, you actually score 2 of the cards. So say this was someone's 3-player scoring. So goodbye, Jessie. So if Samus scored this at the end, you would score 2 of your pile instead of just 1. So this would actually be 16 points, 9 points, and then this is just 6, because 3 or more is still 2 points per. While we're here though, I should start explaining the special cards. So all the special cards do stuff during the trick play. This one specifically, not only does it do stuff in the trick play, but also has stuff with the scoring. So I'll explain that now while we're here. If you only score this as your green, So not Sedusa. So if Sedusa had it there, it would just be, 2 points like normal. So, 2, 4, and then 5. But if you come up here and maybe have Samus score, what you do is you pick any other suit and you rescore it +2. So this would be 4, 7, and then Samus could pick this one and have this count as that 7 + 2, so 9 more points. I should also say the Doc Talk card, it also acts, so if you were forced to score a card, you can discard this instead to not take a card. So this is kind of like a fun little shield in the scoring. So now let's cover the special cards during the trick play. Some of the simple powers are just the 10 and the 13 in the trick play. They just count as a 10 and a 13. If you look at the 0 in Kid Cuckoo, what it does is it just wipes the trick, and then, so no one scores anything, it just gets discarded, and then you move on, and the person who played this gets to lead the next trick. Then the +2, which we talked about in scoring, this is just the card value +2 to the highest other hero suit card. And finally, the infinity for the Dr. Tricky time. This is just an infinity, you win the trick. What happens is, since it can't be beaten, you'll actually just discard this card from the trick, and then you'll have to score every other card in the trick. Something to be aware of is the 0, which discards the whole trick, does wipe that out. So if both of these were in the trick, it would just be wiped away, and this person who played this would lead to the next trick. So that is Tricky Time Crisis. And before I say anything else at the end of the video here, I did want to say a huge grain of salt for anything I say, good, bad, otherwise, because I've talked to John, I've covered his other game, Best Candy on the Block. He sent me this copy of the game to cover. So there's a rapport there that I want to make clear. So anything I say, take with a grain of salt. And also, these are just first impressions. So I've only played the game a little bit, and I don't really know too much about how the game lasts after many more plays. So again, keep that in mind for everything I have to say. That said, I really, really like this game. There's something to, there's kind of that hook, right? Potato Man meets David and Goliath. And I think as a hook it works because those two games are rock solid. Players have played those games for years, and always I see them in recommendations. I see them on lists of favorite trick takers for classic players of trick taking who've been in the scene for a while, new players who are discovering new mechanics like must not follow or can't follow suit. And I think it's so cool to have a mixture of those two type of games where you have such a rock solid foundation in both the scoring and the trick play that when you add things to it like the deck makeup or the powers or the premise of like if you're on the villain team or the hero team and must take cards and how that kind of works, when you have those twists and really so many wonderful additions that make such a wonderful game, it's kind of like nowhere but up in my mind. And I know that's a lot of gushing right off the bat, but I think there's something to this game where immediately you're starting to look at your hand in interesting ways. You can have all these possibilities where players, they're going for big swings for the fences for points, and there's ways to mess over other players, there's ways to try to finagle interesting moves. Just off the few plays I have, I really, really enjoy it. I think the deck makeup, even though it's a little bit wacky, it makes sense for the math of the game. And especially the purple suit, which, can go super high. This feels so great when that is the one card you score. And all of the powers, they fit so great. It feels like you have kind of an ace up your sleeve, but also I've played hands where I didn't get any of them and I still felt in control and I felt like I could do things. It's fun to kind of choose whether you want to be the villain or not in a trick. And leading the villain is always so scary. There's a wonderful tension to having the trick or the hand end early, which in Potato Man sometimes is just like, okay. I didn't think it was like too terribly interesting in Potato Man. Whereas in here, just because you have that David and Goliath scoring where you only want, sometimes just one card of a suit, you can really push yourself to try to end the hand early, and then it feels good. It feels good when you trigger that and you want to trigger that. There's so many cool kind of maneuvers you can do with what you force people to take, or sometimes like take even more at the end and really like go into a suit. I think if I'm remembering correctly, David and Goliath is 1 point per card unless you get 1 or 2 and then it's face value. Whereas in here, it's 2 points per card. And that feels right. It feels great to be able to go out of your way to get like a couple cards when you're like the villain, when you win as the villain. Yeah, I'm just gushing. I even down to like, I know I said it was a kooky deck makeup, but I love that it still works, where it's like one, a 3, a single 3, and then 2s, and then 3 6s, and then the 2s, and then the one, I think it's a 9 or something, or an 8. Oh, it's a 9. But I love that even. And the art is absolutely wonderful. Sai Beppu, I love Sai. And she just knocks it out of the park. I love the plays on all the time-based superheroes. I'm throwing cards. But yeah, I feel bad because I haven't really played it too much to really see how it flows, but like genuinely first initial impressions, really good. I really like it. I'm struggling to find some cons. I know that setting up for different player counts is a little bit fiddly because you have to remove the highs and lows of the Dr. Tricky time, and in addition to a suit, but the suit's not that big of a deal. So sometimes I think setting up a game, if you're going, because we went from like a 4-player to a 5-player once, or sorry, 5 to 4, but you have to kind of like, the setup's a little goofy, but like once you get into it, it's not that big of a deal at all. Yeah, so anyway, super bias, take that all into account. But I do want to say that it's such a fun hook to explain, and especially the players who played both the games of Dave and Goliath and Potato Man, but it just plays so well. Yeah, anyway, thanks so much. I'm super, super excited to see what John does next, because this is so great. And I can't wait to get, I think it's called Midnight from the Kickstarter, because my review copy didn't come with that suit, and it'd always be fun to see a new suit and see what other, kind of power cards, because they all feel fun, all feel different, and, add some more replayability to the game. Oh, stumbling over my words. I wish I could go back in time and redo that take. Anyway, thanks so much for watching, and have a good time. Have a good time.